Started. All right. Thank you for joining us for this discussion. Just for several months now, just been discussing with several women about the challenges that we face, as a wife, as a mother, as an entrepreneur, as a sibling, even your own challenges, your own struggles, your own dreams, purpose, career, all the different factors, all the different dimensions of who we are as a person. And as we start getting overwhelmed, at times it can get overwhelming, which at times we may need to dim one area or or just shut down completely. If one area is not going well, the other areas may not go very well. So I have a lovely guest with me, Dr. Adetoun Faloye, who is a psychiatrist and a mother and a wife. And, she's based in the UK. I'm going to read her bio shortly, who is going to join us, and we'll have an amazing conversation about the different struggles and what has helped her and how we can learn from her today. So I look forward to a robust discussion. So, Dr. Faloye, I'm just going to invite you to join us, to join me here. Let me see. Or are you able to request to join? Perfect.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome,
Are you able to see
welcome.
me?
I cannot see you yet.
Hi.
Now I can.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for honoring us with your presence and wisdom. I've been looking forward to this discussion now for a while, so this is going to be exciting.
I know.
Yes. So, I see Mrs. O joining us. Welcome. We're just getting started. So you met us at the right time. If you have others that should be here, please forward this to them so that we can all learn together. So I'm just going to go ahead and read your bio, and then afterwards I'll let you add one or two things. So Dr. Adetoun Faloye has 17 years of experience as a medical doctor and has spent 13 years in the field of mental health. She currently practices in one of the NHS England Mental Health Trust as a psychiatrist. She obtained a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. She's a fellow of the West African College of Physicians, Faculty of Psychiatry, and has a master's in health policy and management. She envisions a world where conversations around mental health are commonplace, such that no one will be ashamed to discuss their mental health challenges. She regularly shares mental health related information on her social media handle. Amala Nabula, remain our best food. That is beautiful.
Thank
Beautiful,
you.
beautiful. Yes. So great, so lovely to have you. I'm going to have you. Okay, I see someone from my high school in Nigeria. Welcome.
And that's someone from your secondary school.
From my secondary school in Nigeria. So thank you for your support and thanks for joining. So let's get started. So Dr. Faloye, can you tell us, is there anything else you would like to add as a mom, anything else you'd like to add to that lovely bio?
Okay, yeah, I'm married. Been married for 12 and a half years now. And I have 2 kids. I have an older daughter who is 11 now, and my son is 8. Yeah. That's a
So,
bit of about
so
me.
your daughter, how old is your daughter? How old is your daughter?
She's 11.
11. Okay, so 11 and 8.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. That's amazing. So we it seem like we at least we can learn. My children are younger than that. So I definitely want to learn
Okay.
how combining all of these things um, has been for you. So we'll get right into it. Um, in your experience so far, what are the challenges, mental and emotional struggles that you have faced in marriage or that other women are facing that don't get enough attention? In America, I don't know what it is in the UK, but in America is the Mental Health Awareness Month. Every May, we celebrate it.
Yeah.
We celebrate that in the US. And the first week of May is particularly dedicated to maternal mental health awareness. So this is big for us, and so that's one of the reasons I was like, this month we have to start something, and let's talk about it. And here we are. So
Yeah.
over to you, Dr. Faloye. What would you say in your observation, whether in England or all over, with all your experiences, your experience, or even other women? What would you say are the experiences that don't get enough attention?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Tiwa. I would say that um, I'll start by saying there was something I read a few years ago, and prior to my reading it, I think I've also heard a much older colleague say that marriage seems to be protective for men compared to women. That for most women, it appears that marriage protective for mental health, I mean, for men compared to women, and that for most women, marriage actually seems to be like a, um, should we say, a trigger or a precipitant for mental health challenges for women. And that's really very insightful because, people get married most times expecting to have a bed of roses and with a lot of butterflies and great expectations of happily ever after. But the reality is that that is not usually the case. As in with anything, even with our siblings or friends, there will be periods of misunderstanding and disagreement. But I think that with marriage, particularly, that it's a very interesting human relationship of people who are raised completely differently with different sets of outlooks to life. They should expectedly have shared values, but by the time people come together and be in each other's space and have to make decisions together, there could be a clash. And sometimes, um, particularly as women, especially if you come from a culture that is patriarchal, you might feel unheard. You might feel like your opinions are not um, respected. You might feel like your ideas are not valued, or that as a person, actually, beyond your ideas or your opinions, that as a person you are not valued. And that can come from not just the spouse. It's interesting. It can even come from in-laws. Because again, there are so many unwritten expectations that people have of the woman in marriage that are not the same for the men. So I think that actually a lot of married women may not necessarily suffer from mental disorders, but a lot are going through a lot of emotional distresses that they are not talking about. So even though you know that we diagnose based on criteria and things, even though they may not meet those criteria, it doesn't mean that people are not going through emotional difficulty. And I've seen that a lot. And be honest, I've had my fair share. And this, because we cannot behave as if one had a beautiful love story. That would be dishonest. So that's the truth. There are periods when I have felt unappreciated, that I have felt not listened to, you know, but that's part of the journey. And then of course we come to the table again and talk about it. And it can be really frustrating, especially as a high achieving woman, a career woman, somebody who holds her own. It's very easy to feel like, look, I'm capable of making decisions here. Why does it seem like you're not listening to me, or you're not valuing my input? So I have seen it. And interestingly, I currently work in a perinatal team. I've been in that team for about 10 months. So I deal with a lot of women who are pregnant or have recently had a baby in the last, within the last 24 months of having a baby. And what we see is is a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing. It's I work with pregnant women too, where I work. So that's good that we can share, or we share that
Yeah,
aspect of
yeah,
psychiatry, and it just opens your eyes to several challenges that are beyond what you know, before, preconception. Now they're pregnant and postpartum, and the challenges that we don't talk about.
exactly.
We see that, and we have experienced it too. So thanks for sharing. Um, I'm glad you mentioned, the patriarchal society, because that can happen. It's so funny growing up in Nigeria. It's almost very patriarchal, and then you come here, it's a little bit different. Here
Exactly.
women have they have a say. It's almost the women's voice in marriage. I mean, a woman calls, he yelled at me, he slapped me, boom. They're coming together, husband and throw him out. So it's so interesting that the experiences, the expectations are similar in some cases, but still different, depending on the
Yeah,
culture that you're raised.
yeah,
And I'm glad you mentioned, here today we're going to have honest conversation. So for sure, like you said, there are days I have had my own share, be it, family, be it the husband, be it the siblings, be it in-laws, be it even friends, and I think there's some things I want us to normalize that can happen. Everybody,
yeah,
although everybody should be, we all have the same, we all have universal desires. We want to be respected. We want to
exactly.
be seen. We want to be valued. That is everybody's desire. I've traveled around the world, and it's the exact same thing. We all want to be seen. And then it becomes,
Yeah,
how can we do that? We fall short of that. Speaking up about it, I like that you spoke up about it, which is another aspect that at times women don't speak up. We just keep it,
yeah,
and that can cause bitterness and resentment and can go on and on and on. At times, is an honest, what's the word, omission on the person's part, and based on the way they were raised too. And so everybody
yeah,
coming with different expectations of what a marriage should be or should not be. And like you rightly said,
yeah,
at times they're unspoken. So these expectations are in
yeah.
my head. I heard the definition of expectation recently that I thought was very profound. It was by Priscilla Scherer. And she said, an expectation
Mm.
is almost like a script that I have of somebody else to act out, and they don't know about it. They don't know about it, but and I thought, wow, that was really phenomenal, because that is exactly what an expectation is, especially when it's not
Yeah,
communicated. So I'm glad
exactly.
that we started off. Yeah, yeah. So thank you so far, for our guest. Please spread the news. If there's anybody that should be here, let them be here. We have a packed hour of discussion. So if there's anybody that that should be here, so welcome to those that joined us. Alleviate Insurance, welcome. Hersheymas, welcome. We're glad to have you. And so moving right on, how can a woman protect her mental health in marriage without feeling like she's failing as spouse or home? Like you rightly said, combining that. You mentioned something interesting though. You were like, at times, depending on the patriarchal environment, it seems like marriage is more for the men. And for a woman, or I achieving woman is like, I'm fine by myself. I can do all of this. Is really, I'm trying to work with you here. How can I do that? So, what would you say is practical ways for a woman to be able to protect her mental health in marriage without feeling like she's failing anybody, without failing a spouse, and she's not failing her children in her home? What have been your
Right.
practical tools? Yeah.
Right. So I think that as a woman, you shouldn't define yourself by roles. Your role as a wife, your role as a mom. You're a human being and you are deserving of a healthy human existence. I think that many times as women, or maybe it's the conditioning from childhood, particularly from the culture where we're from. I remember one time I think I was spending some hours in one of my aunt's house, and I wanted to serve, I don't know who was also there, another older person, and I wanted to serve the person, and for some reason I didn't use a tray, and she said, why did that have to be about Ileoko? Do you get what I mean? Why did it have to? I mean, it's okay to point my attention to the fact that I should use a tray, but why does that have to do with your husband's house? If you get what I mean. So I'm saying that I think that from childhood, from thinking around our culture where we are from, women or girls have been conditioned to think of themselves in the light of wife rather than as an individual deserving of a healthy human experience and existence in themselves, instead of their life being fashioned to please another human being. So if one is not careful, you'll be surprised that that's the wiring that you have. So it's easy to overextend yourself, to burn yourself out because you define yourself and you gain your identity from being a wife and or a mother. But no, I don't think that God has designed us that way. He has designed us as a full human being who should exist and thrive in their humanity, separate from roles. So if that, first of all, if one has that understanding and one is grounded in that understanding, I think that actually you would be a happier wife and a healthier mom for your family. So in terms of protecting your mental health, what I'm driving at is don't derive your identity from those roles. Derive your identity from the fact that you are a human being, and every human being is deserving of rest. Every human being is deserving of reward for their labor. Every human being is deserving of pampering. Every human being is deserving of happiness and personal satisfaction. So you as a person, wife or mother, regardless, you are deserving of all of those things. And if you see yourself in that light, you will not put yourself secondary to your roles, you see? And yes, there will be periods when you have to make compromises, but that compromise should not come at the expense of your personal well-being. I think that is very important. Don't overextend yourself, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, because a lot of these things, I think I'm really grateful for my mom. I don't overextend myself financially. I don't even know how to do it. I don't know how to. I've seen people borrow to please family or to do things for children. I don't know how to do it. I don't know. And I'm not being boastful. I don't know how to do it. What I have known how to do in all my years is living below my means. So you hardly catch me overextending myself because I need to buy this for my child. No. If I need to buy something for my child and what I desire is not within my capacity, I will buy that thing, but I will buy it within my capacity. For example, I don't subscribe to the idea of, I don't want my children to be different. Look, like, that sort of thing around when the children are going to school, there's this kind of fine pair of canvas that a lot of kids wear. I don't do that kind of thing. If it's outside of my budget, I will not overextend myself, because the sources of mental distress comes from other things.
Yes.
You see, financial, interpersonal, occupational. So if you need to protect your mental health as a wife and mother, you need to look at all the other aspects of your life and how those things are feeding into your role as a wife and mother, and how that is reflecting on your mental health negatively. So if you are able to sit down and take stock and not overextend yourself just because you feel you have an obligation as a wife or mother, I think you will be in a good place mentally. I think so. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. You see why Dr. Faloye is the right person for this topic. She's doing justice to it. Yes. Thank you so much for highlighting those important factors. One, have a life. Don't be defined by your status. I'm married now, so I am married, and that's it. I like what you said. Have your individual life, your individual identity. Like you rightly said, Dr. Faloye, that unfortunately, with the way we were, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, it has its own benefits, but it has its own perils too, where raising the way we grew up in Nigeria, at least in Yoruba culture, like you rightly said, is almost like you are being raised on how to be a wife. Everything you do is to be a wife and a mother rather than to be who you are as an individual. Because when you are full as an individual, that fullness will spill in every area of your life. Is when your cup is full, you can be giving others. You can't give what you don't have. But unfortunately, I hear what you're saying, where some women is happening is the pressure is on, where some ladies right now don't feel fulfilled until they are married. Some ladies don't feel like they are living until they are married. It's several people that are like, you know what, until I'm married, I don't feel like I have a life. There's something missing. Yes, it's not, marriage is not meant to complete us. But like you rightly said, that's the way we were raised, almost like, everything you do, it must be this way, when on the other side is not the same. Men are not raised that way. They are just raised, at least in Nigeria, they are raised to be, yes, to be responsible, to be, some of them to be the head, skills to be head of a home. But it's not so much everything has to be, no, you just want to be responsible and being able to provide. So I like that you highlighted that as women, for us to protect our mental health, we need to have our own identity, that even predates marriage, that is not about marriage, so that when marriage comes, marriage is an amplifier of already what we have. So I'm glad you said that, and that is very critical. Even the expectations you were saying, you won't borrow. I'm glad your mom did that, because there are homes that is exactly different, where you want to keep up with the Joneses, you want to keep up with the culture, you want to keep up, and unfortunately, it's additional pressure. Oh, my daughter doesn't have this, my child doesn't have this, so I'm failing as a mom. So this really ties. This is a good segue to dealing with guilt, which is one of the questions I was going to even ask you, like dealing with guilt, and you've already started it. Like, no, there are some things you don't even let bother you. So that, I mean, why buy the shoes, and if you don't have it, you don't have it. So I like
Badly.
being realistic about your budget. We're not going to break a bank just to please
No.
the child and just to keep up. And unfortunately, it's another style next year. So what you bought this year, it goes out of style. So if you go with keeping up with culture, your bank may be
You're
wrecked.
going to keep running. You're going to have to keep keeping up. It never ends.
Which it never ends, and it's just an unnecessary pressure that. So I like what you said, and thank you. So I would move it on. So to our guests that joined us, thank you for joining us. We're just chatting with Dr. Faloye. She's been dropping nuggets and practical tools of what she has been doing and is working for her, and we are learning from her. So the next question for you would be, the boundaries. How can we set boundaries in our homes? Which you already started with the financial boundary. How can we set other kind of boundaries in our home? Be it, is it in-law, is it friends, is it, what kind of boundaries would you suggest that we can boundaries, people see boundary as something negative, but boundaries are meant to protect us. They're meant to protect
Exactly.
us. But so tell us a little more about how can we see boundary and how can we effect it? How can we set it up in even some other areas that has helped you? Thank you.
Right. So I think that when it comes to boundaries, um, because you're not in a marriage with yourself, you're in a marriage with someone else, I think the first place to start is to have conversations around the things that are creating difficulties. So sometimes, if it, as an example, um, the difficulty is coming from an in-law, I think it's helpful to find a very respectful way to have the conversation with your spouse. Right. They might have a different perspective because they know their family member better than you. Although I must be honest, sometimes the things that in-laws do, they wouldn't do in the presence of their own children. The things they do to their daughters or sons-in-law, they wouldn't do to their own children. The expectations they have of daughter-in-law or sons-in-law, they don't have that expectation of their own children of the same gender. So it's like that. And I think that the way boundaries are set or are going to have to be set will differ from person to person, and it will be situation specific. So, but I personally advocate having a conversation with your spouse about it. That is, if it has to do with an in-law, and hear that perspective. If you feel that they don't have a grasp of the enormity of the issue,
Hmm?
um, I believe very much that confrontation is not the next step.
Mm-mm.
Personally, when I've had similar instances like that, I realized that creating a distance worked for me, and I was very intentional about the distance.
Okay.
Like I can't teach it. I don't know how to teach it, but I created distance. Or let me give you some examples. So it could be like I completely avoided even telephone conversations. If I was going to have a telephone conversation, if the person or persons call me, I don't pick the call. I would then call the person back at a period when I will have control over that conversation.
That's great. Mm, mm,
I'm going to have control in that I'm having control over my own emotions. I'm having control over how that conversation will go. Or if the person has had difficulty getting across to me, maybe I've tried my number a couple of times and I've not picked, I would expect that the person will call my spouse, and then I would, so that my spouse is present whenever that phone conversation is taking place. And I learned that from one of my uncles. It's interesting. My uncle told his wife that she should not go to my grandma without him. So that whatever his mom, that my grandma is his mom, whatever she's going to say in his presence. So nobody is giving any reported speech.
that's good.
That I'm talking about more than 20 years ago when I heard that.
Good. That is so good.
So, so I was talking about boundary setting and I was trying to say that it's situation specific. But my first prescription is to have the conversation with your spouse. If you're not happy, because it is actually easier and tidier when the spouse addresses the issue that has to do with their own family members, right? But if you feel that the spouse is not having a grasp of the enormity of the issue, my own approach will be to create distance as much as possible.
Okay. Okay.
Because when you keep the distance, it limits the friction. Because again, it is important to keep the bond of peace. It is important.
Yes.
And
Yes. Because yes.
yeah, because, and I'm not saying peace and suffer in silence. I'm saying manage this thing with wisdom. Okay. And boundaries could also be with friends. Your spouse may have complained about maybe instead of friendship. Try to understand their point of view. Sometimes there are spouses who just because they are not the friendly type, they feel that it is everybody else should be like that, including their spouse. So it's not as if they have anything against their spouse. So, but it's important to have that conversation. I think that one of the difficulties adults have is having difficult conversations.
Correct.
People run away from having difficult conversations. And I believe passionately that one of the evidences of maturity, emotional maturity, is the ability to have difficult conversations.
Absolutely. I echo that.
So, of course, you can't have difficult conversations with everyone. I don't expect you to have difficult conversation with your in-laws if you don't have that kind of relationship with them. But I think that with spouses, you should be able to have difficult conversations. And that's what we call them, difficult conversations, because they're not going to be easy, but they are supposed to be hard. If it is about your friendship groups and the person is complaining, you know your spouse, find a good time and place to have the conversation. Hear their point of view. Don't shut them down. If you don't feel that their point of view is strong enough for you to bring out your strong points, just have the conversation. Sometimes setting boundaries would also mean making adjustments in your own point of view, actually.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because, the list is endless, but I would say that in all, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, I have also found that praying about things and asking the Holy Spirit for help
Yes,
gives you, helps you to do the thing that helps you with timing, with tone, with approach.
yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. Faloye, for those great points. So I'm just going to echo that. If you're just joining us, welcome. If you've been here and you're learning, drop your comments in the chat. Let's see that in the comment section just to make sure you're still with us and you're learning. I'm learning, and it's great that you're sharing this. What I've heard so far, which I'm so glad you mentioned, is effective, just communication, which goes back to childhood, the way we're
Yeah.
raised. With the way all
Yeah.
of us, different backgrounds, different homes, some were not allowed to speak, some were not even seen. So you didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a point, you didn't have a voice. And unfortunately, some of us were, just forced to keep quiet. They didn't have an opinion. So I've heard that a lot from my patients, from my even friends, and even clients. And I see, communication, like you were saying, you have to be able to even communicate your needs, communicate, that's which is what you were saying, like you're able to communicate what you have observed about in-laws, about friends, about what is going on. But some of us can't even communicate very well. We struggle with the right words. We even struggle with acknowledging it, because you can't even say what you have not acknowledged. You can't fix what
Yeah,
you have not
actually.
acknowledged. Some people sweep things under the carpet. You know what? I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to get upset. I don't want my husband to get upset. So at times we're a husband pleaser, we're a people pleaser. We would rather hurt
Yes.
ourselves than communicate. We rather hurt ourselves than have a difficult conversation. And I like the word you call it. I call it courageous conversation. I learned that from one of the
Ah, I like
hospitals that
that.
I worked. So I always call it courageous,
Ah,
because you have to have that courage to face it. And while it may
yes.
hurt, it's usually productive. There are different kinds of
Yes.
conflict, and there's something we call productive conflict. And so, I like what you said about it not being confrontational, but there's something we'd also call in therapy, therapeutic confrontation, because you kind of have to have it. It's therapeutic. We're not calling out names. And one thing I like what you said is about praying. So if you're a person of faith, I always say, put God first. If you're a person of faith and you can hear me, God helps you season your words with grace. When I don't pray, I lash out for me. I will just say it, boom, the way I feel. And it's really not good. Even though it may be the truth, it doesn't, it's a conversation. It's a discussion, not a monologue. If it's a monologue, you can be very
No.
critical, when you're talking to yourself. But when you're discussing with somebody,
Yeah.
you want them to be able to hear you. And if they can't hear you, please, what conversation have you had? So I always tell people,
No.
like you said, watch your tone, watch your tact. There's a tact to communication. There's a tact to having conversation. And most of us are not trained. We don't have that skill. I always say, seek it,
Mhm.
learn it. You know, there's one of the statement that I've had that has helped me over the years that so far hasn't failed me, hasn't, hasn't, and it's one of Stephen Covey's 7 highly effective habits of leaders. Yes, he hasn't failed me. Is to be understood. First, seek understanding. He has not failed me. He hasn't failed me as a person. He hasn't failed me as a
Mm.
doctor. He hasn't failed me as a wife. He hasn't failed me as a mother. When I'm in the mood, though, because some days I'm not in the mood, and I just want to, hey, come, this is the way I feel. But if I can breathe and settle in first, that I pray, I'm in a place to listen. Remember, everybody wants to be heard, including the person you are talking to.
Exactly.
But the problem is we just want to dump. This is the way I feel. Boom, boom, boom. Take it, take it, take it. And at the end of the day, we lose the other person because we become selfish
Yeah,
when we're in pain. And that's life, it's all of us. We become really
exactly.
selfish. It's the way you talk to me. Don't you know how you spoke to me hurts me? They did not know. In some cases, I will tell you. By the time sometimes maybe I'm telling my husband did not know how he, no, he did not. Which is why there's a need to communicate. Is when I'm saying that is like, huh? I didn't even know. So at times we women, we get, and I see it a lot. Several of us, we just like, oh my, and then we stomach, we bottle it up and we don't speak. And guess what? What you don't deal with only lingers. It stays.
Exactly. And it even becomes
It
worse.
destroys. Yes, it destroys what you are now trying to build. So I always tell, my
Exactly.
advice, and this is what has helped me is first, in everything, if you can, if you don't make it about you, it's not always about us. It's not
Mm.
always. Not always. It's always good to seek understanding. From understanding then you and your spouse, that has helped me. We can then plan together. If you criticize the other person, the person shuts down or becomes defensive. Haven't you noticed? If I come and
Yes.
I throw it at you, you throw it back at me with how dare you?
So
Because you're putting the person in a place of defensiveness. And like you said, when we go
exactly.
first to God to help us, He gives us that wisdom. Not that we should shut up, but He lets us discern the right time. Criticizing never works. It never. I don't
No.
know the person that does well with criticism. I don't. I don't. My brain doesn't. I don't know anybody that is more productive with destructive criticism. There's constructive criticism, but there's that destructive. If you can't make it about the situation, if you make it about the person, it's destructive. So just wanted
Exactly.
to add that. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. And we only have 15 minutes. You can see that maybe at some point we have to. This is a continuous conversation on the following. But I'm going to shift gears
Yeah.
now to motherhood. We've spoken about
Yeah.
marriage. I'm probably going to ask one question or two about motherhood, then one about the career. So the one on motherhood
Okay.
would be motherhood often changes how we see ourselves. You know,
Oh yeah.
the pregnancy, the different things, your body, the hormonal changes. How has becoming a mom shifted your identity or mental space?
Please, can you repeat it? There was a break in the transmission.
Oh, okay.
First thing.
How has you becoming a mom? How has it shifted your identity? Has it shifted your identity or your mental space?
Well, sometimes because I work in the perinatal team and I'm listening to a lot of women these days in the past 10 months, nearly every day, every week, I'm listening, I'm writing something about a pregnant woman or a new mom I have. It's made me to think back to when I became a mom the first time and even the second time. I'm still a mom. And I'm not very sure that becoming a mom has changed my identity significantly, but I think what it has done for me is appreciation for my mom and a lot of things I took for granted as a child.
Mm,
Um, the other thing it has done is it serves like a check, you know, and it helps me to introspect about my character. because it the saying is true. Children don't listen to what we say; they watch what we do. I
Absolutely.
I want to raise responsible human beings, and I know that they are watching and they are picking up a lot of things unconsciously. I think that one major thing that being a mother has done for me over the last 11 years is I think I'm a lot more calmer. I'm a lot more calmer. In fact, my son is quite a vocal person. I mean, there was a time they felt like this mom just used to shout a lot. So recently told me that you have reduced yourself.
It gave
And
you
I
a good
know that
feedback.
now because again, yeah, I have I mean, 11. She's already, she has all the evidences of puberty. So I am talking to her differently now. I am, I think maybe I should just summarize. The major thing I can say that being a mother has done for me is I'm a lot more cautious about how I conduct myself because I'm constantly aware that I want to raise responsible human beings who are godly, who are respectful of other human beings, who are considerate of other human beings, who are people I want to look at as adults and be say, wow, that's my child there. Thank you, God, I did a good job. Or my husband and I did a good job. And I know that it is not in what I say to them. It is in what I do and what I exemplify. So I'm a lot more introspective. I'm a lot more careful about what I do, what I say, how I act to them, to my husband, to people around me. Yeah, I think that's the shift that I can
That's
say has happened to me.
That's great. Thank you for sharing those, Farah. It's great that you mentioned that as the mother we begin to understand our mother. We be life is there's a saying, life is leaped forward, understood backwards. And you
Yeah,
begin to understand like, okay, maybe this is the why she did this, why she did that, or why why she didn't do what she was meant to do. Either we applaud her or we are wondering what happened to her. But there's an understanding suddenly
yeah,
that comes, and like you were saying, it's you become more intentional. Either you want to be a better mom or you want to be the kind of the same mom, or but you make a decision, which is what you're sharing, where you are more aware. You want to be an intentional mother, a present mother.
yeah,
And like you said, children don't do, they don't do as we say, they do as we do. And so it's very important, as Dr. Jordan Peterson has said, raise children that you want to be able to have a conversation with as an adult. So always think of them as an adult. If you will not be able to have a conversation with your own children as an adult, then there's something wrong. Because they are going to be the adults you're going to be chatting with when they're grown. And so if you cannot have a conversation with them when they're grown, then there's a problem. But it starts now, which is why I like what you said about just being aware and being an
yeah.
intentional. So it's intentional parenting that you're saying we should be an intentional, yeah, and that is very key. So thanks for sharing that the only thing is just be mindful of how you show up to our children. So the other question is, if there is a mom that is very overwhelmed now and afraid to admit it, because this is a good question. Your answer actually is a good segue to this question. Is afraid to admit it, maybe not even aware, or she's afraid to admit she's struggling. What are the practical tools you would like to share with her now, if she's listening to us?
Right. I think that one thing any woman out there needs to know is that there's no award, there's no plaque for the person with the ability to cope with the struggle the most. Nobody gives a plaque for that thing. Nobody gives an award of excellence for learning how to cope with the greatest struggles on earth. And let me tell you, what you think is unique to you, countless women have
Hmm.
gone through it. You can
Hmm.
shorten that struggle by speaking up. speaking up is not an act of weakness. I think that people who can admit that they are struggling are actually one of the strongest people on earth. I usually reference Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane when his time was approaching. The guy asked some of the disciples to tarry with him that, this thing I be one go face. This thing I'm about to face, I am dreading it. Please come with me. The Bible described it was in such a great anguish. Anguish. And he still asked people, he knew that those guys, they are weaklings. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
He knew them now. Maybe they were disciples.
Yes.
He even begged them that they should come and just be with him, to pray with him. He left them, went a little further, and he came back, he made them sleepy. But what I'm driving at is that in his difficult period, he still asks for help. Are you, so how much more of? So please don't, it is not, there's no shame. And I think that is why people should have healthy friendships. I think that people who don't have healthy friendships are the ones that are ashamed. Because if you have good friends, you will be in a space where you are courageous to tell your friends that, man, this thing is happening. I'm struggling with this. My back is about to break. But please be reminded, there is no award of excellence for she who was able to endure the greatest hardship alone. Nobody awards that woman.
I love what you said. That there's no badge of honor. There's no badge of honor for the woman that handled the most struggles in this world. There's no badge. There's no award. I echo that 100%. There's a favorite quote that I like to say. A wise person is not one that suffers in silence and does not ask for help. A wise person is someone that would not only admit they need help, reach for help, will not quit. Because sometimes they're like, hey, I told her, well, nobody helped me, I spoke up. And that can be an excuse to give up. Because sometimes that can be discouraging. But that wise person is someone that persists until they get the help they need. And don't even stop there. They then help other people to get the same help. That's who I call, asking for help is courageous. It's not weakness. As compared to culture where our culture is the woman is doing this, the woman is doing that. And then shortly after she dies, she doesn't even enjoy the fruit of her labor because, she was just doing a lot of things. So, Dr. Faloye, thank you for saying that we should reach out. Asking for help is not weakness. It is wisdom.
Yeah.
Jesus did, even knowing what was going to come. So, I would move it on to career briefly. That may be our last question, maybe 2 questions in one. What would you say, how do you balance the responsibilities of career and home? As a wife, as a mom, how do you balance all of this? And have you ever felt like you had to choose one? Because at times,
I think that, oh, definitely, there will be clashes. At some point in this journey, there will be clashes. I think that's a given. And that is why if you look at your trajectory as a woman and you compare that to an average man in your class, say, because we are doctors in med school class, if we want to be honest, as a married woman and a mom, you probably see a difference, a time lag. Probably. We will all get to the finish point, but or whatever we decide is our finishing point, or the one that fate allows us to achieve. But what I'm saying is there will definitely be a clash. It is recognizing what phase of life you are in, what support is available for you. And I think that self-analysis and self-assessment is very crucial. For example, I've been in the UK for 3 years. I have contemporaries that came in on the same scheme that brought me, that have moved on to what the UK calls higher training. We all trained as psychiatrists in our respective countries, but some people want to be on the specialist register in the UK. So they quickly wrote exams, applied for higher training, I've not done any of that. I'm doing the exams. I'm on the last phase of the exam. I was planning to take the exam in September. As I am currently, I'm already rethinking that decision.
Mm. Mm.
That because many of these people are guys, the ones that are females, yes, there are some of them that are married, but I'm looking at my own unique situation and I've done a self-assessment. Like, I'm not in a rat race.
Mm-hmm.
I am not, I will get to the goal by God's grace. But at this point in my life, this is my reality vis-a-vis the nature of my husband's job, the nature where my children are at, and even my personal self. I don't think I have the strength for the higi aga just yet. So I've done the self-assessment and they don't catch latecomers, they don't punish latecomers. So I've looked at it. I think I enjoy the nature of the work that I do. Monday to Friday, I don't do on calls. I go to work at 9. I start at 9. I close at 5. I'm back home. I have time for my children. I have time for other things in my life. I don't work on Saturday and Sundays. I just love it. I love it for me right now. The whole of yesterday, I spent it cooking, making chicken suya for my children. I loved it. Today after church, I've hosted friends. I loved it. Who brought their kids? I loved seeing that my children have people who look like us, who they can spend time with during the weekend. So I've looked at it. What is important to me right now? This peace, this space, I like it. Am I at the echelon of my career in the UK yet? No. But what is priority for me? I think that the kind of work I'm doing now suits the kind of life I want for myself. That will still fit. I'm not resting on my oars, but I'm not in a rat race. So I think the summary of it all is to be able to sit down and do a self-diagnosis, a self-assessment. Ask yourself, what is priority to you? What is priority to you? Because let me be honest, I've worked in geriatric psychiatry previously, and that was one of the fundamental. When you work with older people, you would see a lot of these things that we chase as younger people become irrelevant.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of them on addiction without family, and yes, I understand a lot of children migrated outside of Nigeria, but some of them were not even getting calls, they were not even, all those kind of things. And that reframed my thinking. It reframed my thinking. Like a lot of the things that we think are important now that we have the energy and the pump and the drive, when push comes to shove, they are actually not the things that are important. And this is not textbook knowledge. It is a fact.
Yeah.
Does that mean we should not aspire? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm do a self-assessment. Ask yourself the critical questions. What's crucial to you? Something will give. Some give. It may not give for too long, but at some point you should do an evaluation and ask yourself what is important in the here and now, and work with that while you plan, while you have short, medium, and long-term goals. And yes, and above all, trust God with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path.
Wow, Dr. Faloye, that was a lot. If you're just joining us, welcome. Just talking with Dr. Faloye, a psychiatrist in the UK, a mom to 2 lovely children, a wife, and just sharing practical tools that have helped her. And the thing was with your response, you answered like 3 or 4 questions that I had. So that was really good that, sharing the refrain. Handling comparison. That was going to be another question, which you've handled very well. Because we tend to compare a lot. We compare ourselves. Tiwa is this, Tosin is not. Tosin is this, Tiwa is not. And we become depressed, we become sad. Oh my God, I'm a loser because the other person has done this. And we compare our seasons. And I like what you said. We all are different seasons. But we need to know, based on exactly what you said, we're not in a rat race with anyone. At the end of the day, it's an individual journey. It's a personal journey. You
Exactly.
cannot compare Tom's journey, with Tiwa's journey, when they are calling to their gifts, their life, their everything, their purpose, they're completely different. So as somebody would say, someone may get married at 20, another gets married at 50. By 60, they're all married. By 70, everyone is going to die at some point. So like you rightly
Exactly.
said, what do we prioritize? I think that it's a good mental shift, because
Yeah.
we want what we want. Culture tells us by 20. What was it before? By 21, you should be married. That was what it was. It became 25, you should be married. In fact, by 25 before, I mean, our parents, they were done having kids at 25. Some of them at
Yeah.
27, they had 6 kids. And you're like, what? I'm in medical school at 25, 26. I ain't going anywhere yet. Is that me a priority? I'm trying to finish
Fruit.
medical school. So it has even changed now that, 30, 35. So different expectation is shifting. But the key thing is
Yeah.
we need to self-reflect. We need to review. We need to analyze. I like what you said. And we need to reframe. So self-analysis, reframe, and and prioritize what is important to you
Exactly.
at this time. In 5, 10 years, 15 years, looking back, would you have regrets or feel like, okay, I made the best decision at that time?
Yeah.
So I like that you said
Yeah.
that. And I like that, even dealing with comparison, it's not a rat race, and we're all graced based on different journey. So don't compare. You are not in a competition with anyone. And as the scripture will say, it is unwise. They that compare themselves are unwise. So even the Bible says that for a reason. So
Exactly.
as we begin to wrap up, um, there are several, maybe there's a woman listening to us now and doesn't know where to start. What would be your last words to her, like, in addition to yeah, I'm going to ask that you share how people can connect with you going forward. It's been a robust conversation, but there's a woman listening to us now that is just so overwhelmed. I know you shared that, for as a wife or as a mom, now tying everything up, and she's like, maybe she's even single. It's like, what? Is this what I have to do with? I'm not getting married. Or the woman that is married and like, oh my God, I want kids. And I really don't know how that would happen or how that would work with my life, with my, am I going to quit working? Or you have that one that has a child and like, oh my God, I can't manage this. I'm overwhelmed. It's postpartum and I don't know. Or that woman that is trying to wing it. Now she's in the C-suite, and she's just like, I don't know, I feel guilty. So in summarizing all of this, and she doesn't know where to start, what would you say?
Okay. Well, I'll say that young and actually solution is never too far away from us for our different unique situations. Our brain tends to deceive us to think that we are in the worst case scenario, or nobody has been through what we are going through, or mm, nobody can understand our specific circumstances. I acknowledge that your situation is unique and very personal, but there's a vast supply of resources and help out there. So I like you to know that whatever you wake up with your morning, and um, watching us today is probably a good day, and this word has come to you that speak up honestly. Sometimes we are wrapped. These things are just we are just lost in our own thoughts and our own worries. That it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But there are many people who have gone through similar things or who actually know how you can navigate your way out and help you, help you see. They may not hand you the specific solution, but they can share insights. It can even be through any podcast that you can watch. It can be through this conversation. But I don't want you to be in that state of mind that this is difficult and you cannot conquer it. No, we can do this stuff. You can do it. And if you ask the right questions, if you conscientiously pray to be in the right circle, in the right place, come across the right resources, trust me, inch by inch, step by step, you'll be able to figure these things out. Nobody is born with the congenital ability to be a wife. Or, do you get what I mean? Nobody is born. Yes, most of us women are born with a womb, a uterus, but nobody is born with the congenital ability to parent.
I like that.
And I'm not talking about feeding. Parenting is not providing food, though. Parenting is the work, the intentional work of raising responsible humans. Nobody is born with that ability. We all learn on the job. So you are not. Don't overthink these things. And if you are a faith-based person, specifically a Christian, look, you cannot live this life. We were not designed to live this life without the help of the Holy Spirit. I think I'm preaching now, but that is just the fact of life. So please learn to pick up, expose yourself to resources, read a lot, watch, listen to podcasts, study the lives of women. There's so many lessons. Social media has just brought internet has brought a lot of overwhelmed. My dear, please pay to speak to a professional. And don't get it twisted, and maybe that is the purpose of this. No, actually, I don't even personally, at this point in my life, I don't have time for private sessions. So don't think that it is because we want to get clients. No, it is because we know that. And again, what happens in therapy? Nobody hands you a magic wand in therapy. What we do is to walk you on a journey and help you see perspective that will help you come to your own decisions and solutions by yourself. Okay.
This was very good. Thank you, Dr. Faloye. Please, in the chat, let me know if you have any questions. And, does anybody have a question as we wrap up? This has been really good. And I like what you said. One of the reasons that I wanted to host Psychiatrist this month is because we are human beings first. We are women before being a psychiatrist. And so we can relate. I mean, being a psychiatrist doesn't make us immune to the struggles that other women face. And so I wanted us to have those real conversations where we're like, fine, we are the ones that help others. But even the healers need a healer. Even the healers, too, they need to take care of themselves. And these are practical tools that we have learned and we are using and we want people to use. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I didn't think of it about getting clients. Not even about it getting clients, about equipping from what we have learned. How can we help others? How can we give back? And what can you start doing right now? So I like what you said, Dr. Faloye, about everything you said about just don't think like you're alone. Absolutely, our brain tries to deceive us into that. You're alone. Nobody else understands you. Nobody else would. Yes, frankly, nobody else will understand you 100%. Let me be the one to bust that bubble now. Nobody is capable of understanding you 100%. I'm not. The only person capable of understanding you 100% is the one that made you. And that's the person of the Holy Spirit. And that's why he's the one that can guide you, because he's the ancient of days and can give you all the wisdom to survive, because he knows you in and out. But there's no human being. Your husband doesn't. So that's where some expectation. So one of the take home that I would leave with everyone is manage your expectation. Our husbands, our children, our in-laws are human beings too. They are not Holy Spirit. So the expectations we have of them, have those been communicated to them? Or we just expect them to act out this script? They should be these wonderful people. Don't they understand? She's been a mom before. She can't do nothing. And so I'm encouraging us, reach out to someone, speak to someone. Somebody has been there. The Bible says, what is, has been before and will be. So whether good or bad, it has been before, and it will definitely be. So it's not peculiar to you.
Yeah.
It's finding that person that has been there, be it mentorship, be it a coach, be it a therapist, be
Yeah.
it a guide, be it your mom or your mom-in-law or someone or your sister. But by all means, reach out. Nobody was meant to live this life alone. Like a race sport, you're meant to stop at some point, get water, your tires, get it repaired. But you were not meant to do this life alone.
Exactly.
Just wanted to leave that with you.
No.
Speak up, seek help, you know, spread this awareness, support others. If there's a woman that should have benefited from this, send this to her. Hopefully you are not alone and you can help others. But it's time as women, let's help one another. Let's help one another. Let's cultivate that space for others to step in honesty, in all authenticity, and they can speak up to have clarity, courage, or whatever it is. I don't see any question. Any questions from our audience? Thank you for
Esteem.
listening to us. Yes, we appreciate your patience and your support for coming. That is support. So
Yeah.
thank you for showing us support. Any question before we wrap up? Any question? I don't see any. Okay. So if there's no question, we're just going to wrap up. Dr. Faloye, seems like we've answered all questions. We've done, we've
Yeah.
clarified different
Thank you
things.
for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for this robust conversation. We'll probably do another sequel in the future. It's hard to cover all
Yeah.
of these challenging questions in 1 hour. So
I agree.
if there's somebody here that wants to follow you or connect with you, how can they follow you? How can they connect with you?
Okay, well, I'm on Instagram as Chat with Dr. T. I'm on Facebook as Adeti. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll make sure we'll also put that in the caption of this video so that people can reach out. Well, thank you for being with us. I don't know if any last few words. I know you shared it, but if any last thing you're like, hey, this, what would it be?
Never be afraid to ask for help.
I echo that. So embrace each moment and ask for help. Thank you for joining us today. We'll do it again next weekend, every weekend of the remaining weekend of this month. We're going to bring another psychiatrist or mental health professionals to tell us more. So thank you and join us next weekend. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.